personally speaking, some of the friends of mine who studied film with me and who started doing stuff early on, even when they were studying, they would every evening they would go out somewhere beyond the set and do all kinds of things. And I look back and think all of them had some mentors outside of the college who were telling them, this is great, you're doing all this assignment in college, that's great, but it's not realistic. You get a studio extension in 2 minutes on a college campus, but that's not it for you have to follow. So that's one of my motivation also to do what we are doing is to sort of democratize filmmaking and bring it to our community. But more than anything else, I am driven to just the beauty of Tacoma. I moved to Tacoma 10 years ago, and my first thought was when I was coming from Syed, and I came with my wife, my 3 cats from India, and my 2-year-old, as we were driving down, the only thing I could think about is, why am I not seeing people filming? Why are there nobody filming? I've not seen single group, no camera, no lights. Why isn't anybody filming there? And that thought never left me. And for the last 14 years, this project, this conversation started in Mumbai, where I met with several filmmakers, and our goal is to make Tacoma a film hub. We want to revive the film industry. Tacoma had a solid film scene back in the 20s. When you talk about Tacoma and filming, people still give examples of 10 things I hate about you and, rock and that rock. That's past tense. That has happened a long time ago. We want something that happened last year. We want something that happened 6 months ago. Those are the examples. Although I don't want to take away the value of that, because just a few weeks ago, I met about 6 foreign students. And 3 of them learned about Tacoma from 10 things I hate about you. They were not even born when the movie first came out. And I asked them, I said, you were not even born? They looked at me like, what are you saying? We were not born, but our seniors were born. We had the DVD, Belgium, Hong Kong, and Indonesia. 3 students from 3 different parts of the world learned about Tacoma because of that one film. And they were just mesmerized by that film. So I think, culturally speaking, films are important economically. If you study film cities anywhere, Mumbai, Kochi, by the way, is also one of the film cities in India. As part of this outreach, I went to India twice, and we have signed a sister city relationship with Kochi. Malayalam is the language there. If you look up online, go to Netflix and type Kochi or type Malayalam, you will have those films. I know most of you are probably aware of Bollywood, but there is Malayalam and Telugu and Tamil film. There are 4 major film cities in India. Tacoma has an official relationship with Kochi. So we would love to bring their filmmakers here, and we would love to take some of our filmmakers there. But really at the core, the goal is to revive that vibrancy that Tacoma had for films. And in that effort, there are really 2 things. One is the regulation part. We don't have some of the best rebates, etc., as Belfast has in Northern Ireland or Vancouver has. That part is heavy lifting. It'll take some time. But we as citizens, as residents, we can do some other things that might make it easier for our local government and our state government to take notice and then change the regulation. And I would love to start with those parts. What can we do? One of those things we can do is we can introduce filmmaking in our community. We want our young people to learn filmmaking. We want our community to tell stories. I mean, we have amazing stories. The story of Tacoma itself, what it was in 1970s, I don't know how many of you know, but what an amazing story. I mean, from what it used to be, one of the most dangerous cities, one of the most stressful, all kinds of things. I mean, if you go and read, it just boggles your mind to read that. But this is my city, talking about my city, this is what it was, and then how far we have come. So if you personify our city, it's a great story. And I think we should tell that story. And that one of the important part of that story is that the story changed because of people. Detroit happened because of Ford. Tacoma, there was no Ford Motors in Tacoma. It was sheer because of people. People got together, school children got together, non-profits got together, our waterfront for dirty got cleaned on because some one big company came and pumped the money. It was just totally community driven. The story of Tacoma is amazing. And for it to become a film hub, it has a lot. We have amazing waterfronts, most of you are from here, I'm not preaching to the choir, but it's something stunning. I travel a lot. So I've been in Tacoma for 10 years, but I was traveling for 5 years. A lot of it was overseas, but even in the US. Tacoma is really stunning. I mean, the stories here, you talk to people, waterfronts and mountains, and we have colleges, and all kinds of colleges. We have four-year college, we have big university, we have small, all kinds of spaces. I think Tacoma has everything to become a film city. I think what we are missing is a community that has come together to tell that story, to go out and say, hey, come here, do something, we have all the support. And that's really is the goal, to attract filmmakers. So I went to Hyderabad, I went to Chennai, I went to Mumbai, Kochi, where we have Science Agreement, and everywhere I've gone, three things happened in terms of what I was proposing. Do co-production with us, come to Tacoma, it's a welcoming community. Ideate, think of some ideas and work together. So co-produce stuff together. Second, use our city. Come here and film here. We have all of these locations. I took lots of videos and pictures and I showed it. And finally, use our talent. Even if you're making a film in, let's say, Bollywood, in Kochi, work with one of our cinematographers, take some of our talent. That work needs to be done at the script level. So that's some of the things that will happen. But this effort is to, have a film course. We want to have a 6 to 12 week film course, free of charge for our students and adults. Everybody come and learn filmmaking, and just increase the number of stories.
Yeah, well, two different courses we're going to offer. One for the youth and then one for adults. And we're going to structure it, a little bit differently, obviously, so a lot of the similar information. But and then at the end of it, we'll film something, and that's kind of the goal, to get people to work with some hands-on stuff. We partnered with, our friend Danny Winters. He's in town. He owns a ton of gear. Super good dude. He's gonna come on board. The goal for this night is to get interest and see what, explain what we're trying to accomplish. And once the registration for the film course happens, which Syed said it's going to be about 6 weeks of the course itself, 2 days a week, what we're going to try to do. So we'll open up registration 30 days before that begins. And then, right now, like Syed was talking about with Tacoma being a film hub, it's logistically speaking, Tacoma has everything better than any place in Washington. Spokane is doing really well for itself, but Spokane is so isolated, and it makes it very difficult for a lot of filmmaking endeavors. Whereas Tacoma has, Seattle up north, Portland down south, Vancouver's not too far from us either, right near the airport, which is super great. So logistically speaking, Tacoma can really reap from the benefits. And we do have stronger tax incentives in Washington now that are coming together. If you film in Washington, you get 30% back on all monies that are spent in the state, all approved expenses. But the issue with the Washington state incentive is that you need to have 80% of your crew base needs to be Washington residents. And right now, that makes it a little bit tougher for some of the productions coming into town, because you can't really rely on that. Like I showed you guys the picture of As You Are, I talked about As You Are. We shot that in upstate New York, and we had a crew ready to go. We went to upstate New York because of the incentives. We got, and same in Washington now, in rural counties, you get a 10% bump. So in 30 of the 39 counties in Washington state, you get 40% back. So they did the same thing in New York, because the rest of the counties were getting upset that they weren't getting any work. It was all going to New York City. So they put a 10% increase on if you shot in other counties. So we went to Albany, and we had a crew ready to go, and then a bigger production came to town and took our entire crew. So I had to bring everybody up from New York City, and had to restructure the budget, had to house everybody, and people in New York City don't drive. So I had to drive the 5-ton electric truck to set, as well as produce the film and edit the film. So it was a lot. And so I would hate for that to happen with productions coming to Washington, and then another production comes and takes that through, and then that producer is going to be like, very disappointed by that situation. So that's kind of the problem we're facing here in Washington, like I already said a little bit earlier, is like the infrastructure. We need to build up the crew base, and I think that Washington in general, and I think a lot of cities that haven't had a significant amount of film production, like Georgia, like Atlanta, Georgia, I think a lot of people fall into these roles where they want to be, keys. They want to be the directors, the writers, the producers. But we need people who also want to fill the roles of being grips, electrics, and PAs, and these roles that are just as important. Because if we have that crew base, production will come, because then they know that we have infrastructure here. So that's a big thing. The gear house, the rental houses up here are also, it's a little bit bleak. I've done some stuff up here in Washington. We did, I got brought on to do the Amazing Race. They came to Seattle, and that was very stressful, finding over 100 PAs in Seattle, and then working with the gear rental places. There's not a ton of rental houses in Washington, and so finding ways to make some more partnerships with, great camera houses and urban electric houses, and finding places where we can house that stuff up here is big, and those all work with, over time, partnerships with the city and whatnot. And that's what we're also trying to do, is try to show the city that, like, we have a lot of interest here. We want to start going with this. We also want to try to create our own incentive in Tacoma, kind of like Tacoma Creates has, that type of philosophy. Working trucks, we have none up here in Washington. So working trucks, if you've ever driven by a big movie set, a huge movie set, you'll see a ton of huge semi trucks and big, huge camera trucks, and 5 or 10 ton electric vehicles and drift trucks. We have none of that up here, so we have to either bring up those trucks from LA and hire those Teamster drivers to stay for the entire duration of the shoot, or bring them down from Vancouver. And then that also kills the incentive, because that's not money that we're spending within the state. So you don't qualify for anything for that. So we're losing a lot of money that way. So that's another thing. And then sound stages. I know Harbor Island, is in King County, and that's an option for people. But that is only one option, really. There's nothing else. And so we need big spaces. We need warehouses where we can build sets. We're going to start talking to people like the Tacoma Dome, like all these vacant times and you're not doing anything. Can we rent it out to a movie and make some money there? I don't know. So that's kind of the problems that we're facing, and we wanted to do this to kind of like at least begin the intro to producing and over the whole everything on a production. So like the solutions plus the benefits, I'm using Wakanda Forever as an example for what it did to Atlanta, Georgia. There's some of the numbers here. It generated $314 million in local economy for Georgia. And that's not just Atlanta. They filmed in 10 different cities, and they hired 1,800 jobs, local jobs they brought in. And yeah, this is a $150 million movie, but that's a possibility to come to Washington if we build up that infrastructure and have that happen. I was down in Georgia in 2012 when their incentive was it was hot, it was happening, things were happening down there, but they were actually thinking of getting rid of it. And that was the year that they made it a law down there. And the reason why they made it a law is because the local people, the citizens who are not in the film industry, came to the city council and said, we need to fight for this, because these lumber mills are making millions of dollars a year from giving all this lumber for these guys to build their movie sets. The catering restaurants, the companies are making so much money, hotels, hospitality, Uber drivers, taxi drivers. Back then it was taxi drivers, but yeah. So it's the amount of local benefits that happen from movie productions. It's not just you're gonna make a movie, it's cool. You hire a lot of people, and if you do bigger sets and bigger movies, I was actually gonna I was gonna put Gangs in New York up here, because that was just such a big movie, big sets, elaborate sets, but they had no statistics for it. So that's a big thing where they did great statistics for this. In Atlanta, they're keeping really good track of all the money that comes in, all the money spent, all the people hired. And we need to do that up here in Washington. We need to keep track of the statistics so that, it gets these politicians, they don't see, they can't see that far in front of them, so they don't know what they're missing. they just are like, they passed this incentive now that we have, which has a very low cap. So every state has its own cap, and I know I'm gonna get into the weeds and sort of this stuff, so I go too far. But, every state has their own cap, like, you know, New York is like $440 million. They have $440 million to give out for productions to come every year to New York. California is like close to it, it's like 420. Georgia does not have a cap. They can bring in billions of dollars and they'll just give it back. They just keep it coming. They're bringing in a lot of money down there. And then Washington, I think we're at what, like 10, 15, 13? 15. Yeah, so we're at 15. So like,
About to double them.
we got a ways to go to get to those caps, but that's kind of like where we're at. But, you know, they need to see productions happening before they can grow it. So that's kind of also the catch-22. And that's where it's like, having an incentive is cool, but, you know, it's not like the Field of Dreams. If you build a field of comedy, you need the infrastructure, you need all the stuff there to happen. So that's kind of the deal.
And also, that very often when you talk about film, the impact of film on local economies, people often don't realize that there are at least 15 industries that get affected immediately. Economic impact is across the board: restaurant, real estate, servicing people, local artists. And just to, you were saying 400 million in New York cap?
Yeah.
New York
440
City,
or something like that.
that's what they're giving out.
That's how much they give out
Yeah.
every year, yeah.
New York City alone makes about $9 billion every year because of film production. You see the return, both actually, Utah and New York City, both about 9 billion. Our state, I believe, if I remember it correctly, Film Board sent out that report, about 90 film projects were done in 2024, under $500 million. I mean, you can compare it with, we're so far. Vancouver makes about 3.5 million, 4 hours away from there. Then New Mexico. I went to Albuquerque just to see what they're doing, and their ecosystem was just so amazing. In my own little, very limited experience, I was there for a conference, and I asked about 1,200 people in that conference, mostly higher ed people. And I hosted them at our Airbnb, and I said, how many of you watched Breaking Bad? More time, like 60, 65 people. I said, would you like to go see the location where the Breaking Bad was filmed? And I was there for about 6 or 7 days, and I think with just my presence and the higher ed people who were there for the conference, they were not there for anything film related. I just asked them, we are in Albuquerque, you have seen Breaking Bad, can we go to the same restaurant where, you know, you want to go see where the money laundering was done, and cash, car wash, and everybody wanted to. And my very rough estimate is, because of those places where they all wanted to go and we went there together, we ate, we came back, the next day we went again to different places, we rented a car. I think collectively, about $12,000-$13,000 was spent by these people just because they wanted to go see that place. It was totally unplanned. It was not part of it. We were there for an international higher education conference, ICAC, that happened that week. So I think the impact is amazing, and also for our city to become a film city, it has to be a collective effort. We all have to come together, restaurants, artists. My initial response that I got when I first started off was, it's not gonna work. I heard so many no's, and they just didn't work on me. Those no's just got dissolved every time I looked at the waterfront. I looked at the mountain. I said, I don't know. I didn't say no. I'm not gonna buy it. Let's keep going. And then, you know, after a point, I met so many people who are so bullish about Tacoma. They just love Tacoma. And I realized that, you know, I think now I'm meeting the community. I'm very bullish on that. I would love to, my focus is mostly international because I work with American colleges and universities to help them recruit international students and build their study abroad programs. That competency I want to employ here. and whatever it takes, I mean, film tourism, tax incentives, infrastructure development, community engagement, all these are important parts. You can pick up any of the film cities anywhere in the world. There are some standard features. They all have done more or less the same thing. And to my mind, it's almost like copy paste. We just copy them and we do it here. Belfast in Northern Ireland. Abu Dhabi has done so much. I mean, you will not believe what Abu Dhabi is. Tiny little city. It has done so much. In fact, I've just been following Saudi Arabia. Would you believe that? Many of you think Saudi Arabia will do anything but terribly conservative. But if you go out and study Saudi Arabia and see what they're doing, I mean, they have just signed Spike Lee to come over, and they're signed a whole bunch of all seen Saudi. I think I'll email you all some of the things that we're talking, but I'm just following them and think what are they doing and how are they doing and where are they finding problems. None of our problems are unique. They all have these problems, and I really believe that commercial it should. We have just amazing, stunning views. We have wonderful summer. The light here is so amazing. So I think we have everything, but we have to take small steps. For us, that first step is let's introduce the film course. Let's just start teaching. Let's get our young people and everybody who's interested in filmmaking to come and learn it and tell more stories. One of the advice I got from a cinematographer in Mumbai, he said, you are so passionate about Jamal. We don't know that city, and you are asking us, the filmmakers in Mumbai, to come to US, but you're not mentioning New York, you're not mentioning Boston, you're not talking about LA. What is this Tacoma? Why should we go to Tacoma? And he was, he was my classmate, and he has done very well. He said, why not produce something that you can showcase? Tell some stories about Tacoma. Show Tacoma, all these things you're mentioning. One of the things we want to do is to make a small Tacoma presentation. I think that you're working on. We'll have to make a few more. Also the stories of local people. So it would be wonderful for us to go. In fact, May 1st through May 4th, there is a massive media and entertainment event happening in Mumbai. It's called WAVES, WAVES, which stands for something. No. But the CEO of Netflix is there, CEO of Google is there. I mean, name it. I mean, all of the top American company folks. And it's a media and entertainment industry. They're all getting together 4 days in Mumbai. And my friend's advice was that it would be wonderful for you to go to these places, and instead of talking about your city, why not tell some stories? Pick up a cafe. Say, this is our cafe, Anthem Cafe. I go there also. So this is a local cafe. Here is their story, and make sure that story is told cinematically. These are cafe people. These are not filmmakers. This is a cafe, the story of a cafe, and put together stories of those. So we also want to go to our community and just mainstream this idea of telling your story. Why are you doing whatever you're doing? And then attract those filmmakers. I talk a lot about India because I grew up there and I have a relationship and I want to leverage that. I'm also part of sister cities because we have about 16 sister cities all over the world. Our sister city in South Africa is also a pretty big film hub. One of my friends, Tina, who is from Germany, and she's trying to build a relationship with Germany, sister city, and she's also trying to see if we can bring some film network. So whatever little, I mean, these are the ideas which is bring and slowly change Tacoma's identity as a film hub. But I think we should switch to our course now and talk about some of the things that we want to do with our course.
Yeah, so the course is, like I said, it's going to start from the concept. I'm hoping that we can get, dedicated folks who want to come and take the course, who either already have concepts or ideas that they want to turn into a film or short film or whatever, or already have a script written that they can use to dissect for the program. So the course is going to basically detail everything that you need to do to make that project ready to shoot. And so we're gonna do, like finding your idea and flushing out ideas and getting that all done, and like the importance of the idea, and that ties into the genre. Genre is super important when it comes to getting your film sold, and getting people to sign on to the film. Our big example for me is like our Sundance film, it won an award at Sundance, but a lot of distributors had a hard time marketing the film. So because it had too many genres. So after that, I was like, all right, let's try to focus on, this film is a thriller, this film is a horror film, this film is a drama, which the dramas are very difficult to do in the indie level as well. I don't really do a lot of dramas unless I have really big directors or really big actors, because there's so many dramas that get made every year. That's why you see the market with a lot of independent films that are thrillers or horror films, because they travel internationally so much better than other films. So the importance of genre, writing the script, we're going to talk about, the basic foundations for writing a script, and I'll help people go through and flush out their scripts and be able to like get it done correctly, formatted correctly. Everything that you need to have when you're submitting a script to places, it needs to be properly formatted, very much like a resume if it's done in pencil, they'll throw it away. So you need to have everything done perfectly in a way that the industry is used to. Old habits die hard, and this industry is like one of the worst when it comes to that. And if things aren't done a certain way, you're not gonna get anywhere. So doing things the right way is good, and that's what we're gonna focus on. Set etiquette and structure. So those are very important aspects to making a film. We'll go through like, all the way from like radio jargon to talk on the radio. I love radios on set. They're so great to have that communication. I think they're hands down better than cell phones. Cell phones are too distracting, where a radio has one job, and you have an earpiece, and it's amazing. So we're going to talk about things like that, some of the jargon on the film sets, all the positions, go through the call sheets and everything, and we'll use examples from my films that I've made to go through all these for everybody to see. I'll bring call sheets, I'll show you guys how everything's done with the schedules, everything. We'll get into lookbooks and pitch decks. These are important for a lookbook for me is more of the creative aspect. I share those with like the filmmakers I want to work with, the actors, they want to see like the creative elements of the film. With a pitch deck, I use more for the business aspects of things, so going out to the financiers and whatnot, which I'll break that stuff down for people and show you how to present a film to an investor or to a group that you want to go raise some money with. It doesn't matter if it's $5,000 or $2 million. Like, you have to have the same things in there to be able to get people to understand what you're trying to accomplish. And how you're either going to pay people back or if it's going to reward them in some other way. Financial plans, so those are important, same thing, those tie into the pitch decks, but they're much more comprehensive, and that's where it's fun to like look at things like debt. We use a lot of debt in filmmaking, whether it's pre-sales of casts that we have in our films, or the state tax incentives, which are huge. I mean, those, or country incentives. Some countries are offering 50% back on things. If you go to like Malta, like they're offering crazy incentives in certain countries. So you put that part of your finance plan, and that mitigates the risk for investors. So they like to see that stuff. And I put that together in a finance plan that makes sense for them. Instead of them having to put up $5 million for this, they want to put up $2 million, and I can go raise the rest through other sources. And that's what we'll talk about. Schedules and budgets. I'll show you guys, how to schedule a film. So like we do that for all of our films. I'll do a schedule from the beginning. I'll break down a script, and I do this myself because of my past as a first AD. I like to make sure that we have a good set, that everything's in order of how we want to shoot it. And 99% of films are not shot in order of how the script is written. You have to go based off of locations, off of actors' availabilities, so many different things. So I usually book it based off of where we're shooting at location-wise. So it might be the beginning and end of a film at the same location. We'll shoot that stuff in one day. So we'll do the schedules and understanding how to create a proper script board or one-liner. Budgets. These are fun, but necessary. And I'll bring some sample budgets that people can look through during the course, and seeing how to like work through that stuff. You know, you don't need to have the software to make this stuff right now, but eventually you'll want to get that stuff if that's where you want to go. I personally don't budget films. I hire line producers, and I usually hire locals where I'm filming to do a budget, because they know the local economy, they know the rates for people and things like that. But, you know, we can look through those budgets, and there's great software for it. You know, now it's kind of like monthly subscriptions, but Movie Magic is the software that we use. Get into pre-production. So, my favorite part about the actual filmmaking process is pre-production, because that's where you can fix all the mistakes that could ever happen in a movie. There's a famous saying in the film industry: fix it in post. People have heard that. Well, I always say fix it in pre. That's just the way that you got to do it. So, you know, so I always like to go through how we do proper pre-production and the importance of it and everyone's roles, because you actually sometimes hire different people for certain jobs in pre-production. There's some office people or whatnot. And this is all going to be coming from like a very independent film standpoint. I've worked on studio films, but as a producer, like doing independent films, and I'll show you how that process has worked for me. So I think that those can really translate to very low budget films as well, and the micro budgets and whatnot. We'll get to the principal photography, go through house set structures, go through a day-to-day, you know, certain things like that. There are responsibilities of every department. We'll learn all that stuff so that once we get to filming, it'll make sense. We'll do more hands-on stuff. Post-production, you know, probably my least favorite part about making films. Sorry if there's any editors out there, but it is the most tedious part about making a film. But it's so important, so important. So, and it's the same thing with having a proper schedule and having a good post-production supervisor. Most producers have to just do that themselves with budget constraints. But just having a schedule so that you know how you're meeting your deadlines. And we always like to schedule our films based off of, like, we have a strategy for every film before we start making it. You know, do we want to do a festival route for this film? Sure. Okay, let's not film this movie. If we want to go to Sundance, let's not make this movie in, you know, August or September, because the submission deadline is going to be passed. September 30th is the extension deadline. So, so you want to film it, you know, maybe in March, April, so you have enough time to get a good edit done. So there's a strategy for every film. Some films we don't have a strategy to do any sort of festivals, like our Columbia film. It was like, this is a thriller. It's a natural disaster thriller. We're just gonna go make it and go sell it, and that's what we did with the film. We didn't do a festival. We just sold it to Shudder, and it was good. And then we'll talk about sales, distribution, and festivals. I think that sales and distribution models are going to be changing over the years, just because you know, streaming has changed a lot of things. Theaters are a lot more accessible to independent filmmakers now, which is great. They used to not be. We used to have to go through certain distribution channels or solicitors to get into theaters, and now I think it's changing a lot, so that's great. We can talk about that. Some of the companies that, you know, like the different tier companies that you want to try to work with. And then festivals, like, there's such a strong strategy for festivals, but there's only, like, you know, if you want to get your film sold, which is everyone's goal, really, you want to make a viable, sustainable industry for yourself, right? So that's what your goal is. There's like 10, maybe 15 film festivals in the entire world that you want to try to target to get into, to be able to sell your film. So that makes it a little bit harder. You have to focus on certain elements and study the films that have gone to that festival, study the genre, study different things, you know, talk to other filmmakers who've gone to those festivals. And that's part of the strategy. But all these things we're going to cover in 4 weeks of the courses. We'll get through the courses. This is all in classroom stuff. There are going to be 3-hour windows for each class, and then we'll do 2 weeks where we're going to figure out if we want to shoot like a scene or two from somebody's script from class, or if we want to actually make a short film. And this is going to be dependent on people's schedules, because you can't do a 3-hour day to make a movie. It's impossible. You know, the films are usually 12-hour days. So we just have to figure out how it's going to work for everybody's schedule and how how many people we get. We'd like to have 2 people classes, that'd be ideal. But, you know, we'll be flexible with how things unfold, but I haven't talked too much.
Yeah, and also I think the methodology we were discussing, if we could, you know, we would love to go to the community and get community involved instead of, this is, when I look back, this is, I think, one of the mistakes that, I guess, the curriculum had when I was studying. We were given full liberty to do whatever we wanted, like total imagination, and so we were just manufacturing things on our own. But that's not how it works in the real world. Real world, you're given instruction, you're given time, you work with limited capacity, and then be creative. And so I think we would love to work with some of the local businesses and see how we can incorporate their story within our curriculum so that the product that comes out is actual something for some business. You can go back and ask them what happened, you're using this product. And that way we can also, you know, get some stipend for you who enroll, also get feedback. But most importantly, that real world thing is important. You have to go to a small, if you go to a bank, you know, they have very different brief to you, what do they want, what are their requirements. So you have to think in terms of storytelling, how will you tell that, versus if you go to a cafeteria or if you go to a public library, they give you a completely different brief. There are some restrictions and you have to use your creativity within that realm of limitations and produce something that has an impact. So I'm very keen to involve the community. I don't want this to be just classroom thing where everybody comes up with whatever idea you, and then you produce it, and then what do you do with it? How can we give you feedback? I mean, I was just, I remember some of my classmates in the film school, it was just so bizarre. I mean, they were producing some, just, you know, I didn't come from the film background. This was my master's program, and I did study film in my bachelor's. Some of them did. And they came and they were just so complicated, and we were using cameras, we had studio. I mean, all of this facility that would have cost us thousands of dollars outside. And some of the students ended up making things that were just for them. They were basically making for themselves. But that's, to me, even at that time, me and some of my friends, we thought this is just, what are we doing? Just satisfying our, you know, the imaginative version. What are we gonna do with this?
There'll be a lot of ways to partner with the community, finding locations,
Yeah.
work with people. Actors, we love to support local actors too, for these type of things. Yeah, but we'll have, that's the thing, is like with our partnership with James, like we're gonna have real gear, real cinema gear, real lighting. So we'll make something either, like I said, a scene or short film, very short film, you know, just to put a cap on everything and show like what different positions do, and James can kind of walk through like what the G&E, the Burke Electric Department and the cinema and camera team does, you know, on set, and it'll be good. It'll be hands-on. I think that, you know, before I went to my first big set, I read every film book I could get my hands on, and I learned more in 1 week on a film set than any book. So I think that it's great to have classroom time. It's great to hear from personal experiences, but until you have your own experiences, I think that would be good. So.
And one of the other methods that Sean and I were discussing is watching film. You know, it's a great exercise. Watch a film, pick up a scene, and go recreate that scene. I mean, you won't be able to recreate it as it is, but you know, it is in a way it is giving you a situation. That is what you have to create. Now you can pick up different scenes. You can have Robert De Niro, raging bull, standing in front of the mirror, one guy, one camera. You can do that, or you can try to do something more complicated. You shouldn't do that. So that decision making also is important. To see a scene and say, I have to recreate this scene. Can I do it? Do I have the resources? Do I have the time? How much logistics is involved? Do I have to take permission? Your brain starts working in a certain way, in a more practical way, because you have to recreate it. And that I think is very useful. This other part of the lecture on the topic. We also watch the film And as part of our method, we watch all kinds, not just American film, not just European film, we watch them.
Yeah, we'll watch clips and stuff, we'll watch, behind the scenes, there's a lot of great behind the scenes stuff for sets, and we'll learn about, you know, like, the importance of safety on the film set. You know, I'm sure that a lot of people hear about, obviously everyone heard about the Rust incident. We'll learn a lot about things like that, and how not to have stuff like that happen on your film set, and the importance of safety officers, and having the right personnel on your team. Yeah, it'll be good. I think it's ambitious what we want to do, but we want to try to get things going. I've had meetings with the city of Tacoma on how we can make filmmaking easier for people, and we'll get to that process. But I think that we just have to kind of start doing things before we get other folks involved, because I think that politicians are gonna follow once things are actually happening.
Yeah, anybody from the city?
Sorry if you are.
Nobody, go ahead.
Yes. We'll open it up for questions now, if anyone has any questions.
I had a question.
Yeah.
So all of these things here is in regards to being a film producer, like that's the role, I guess, like all these things that you described, like making those decisions, it's like you're like the project manager of the.
Yeah, so I think you had come in a little bit after I explained that process. My thought process is with every single position on a film set should know what a producer does to be able to put everything together. So I think that this will help, even if someone in this room doesn't want to be a producer, they understand how to put a film together from beginning to end and all the things in between. And it'll help their positions in any way. You know, when I was, I directed before I had produced, and then I also directed before I was a first AD. After I had learned those positions, and I directed after that, I was like, it just made my life so much easier, because you have so many other things in the back of your mind, like, I gotta get moving myself. I have to get, you know, we only have 2 hours to get this whole setup. Like, you understand time and things differently. So yeah, it is gonna be through the viewpoint of a producer, but there's gonna be encompassing all the departments and everything involved as well, and all the jobs that go into that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, what, you were talking about, like, engagement with, like, local, government and stuff like that, and then also building a community here. Like, is there like a central, I don't know, group or like online or some kind of like communication, central communication where, like, if I know someone who's like, hey, you know, someone wants to learn to be a grip or whatever, like, you'd be like, hey, they can go onto this, you know, there's somebody doing a film here if they want to, like, apprentice or something. I don't know how that works, but like, is there some kind of like community or group that or getting information about, like, hey, the city of Tacoma is going to vote on such and such a thing, show up, everybody come to the meeting, you know, like, I'd love to know about that kind of stuff, you know, to know. I don't know.
The answer is no.
Yeah, very first class. This is the first time we are meeting. Sean and I have been working for 18 months now. This project has been in competition. This is the first time we are meeting all of you. This is the first gathering.
Yeah, we're trying to incorporate not just filmmakers into what we're trying to do. You know, a good example of a film that did that well was Beasts of the Southern Wild. It was made with an artist collective, and so I think Tacoma is a very vibrant and artistic community, but it's very isolated in that way. And I wish that we could we're trying to work on ways to get that communication better with everybody. Because if you want a local, like, painter to work on something for you, like, having that community there, because there are those people. There's thousands of great painters now, right? So we're trying to create stuff like that, and but yeah, there's nothing like that I know of right now. I mean, Facebook is kind of like that thing. I know that there's a few Facebook pages that are for filmmaking, but I don't know if there's anything more centralized.
Oh, okay.
certain cities have like a film office. I don't know if Tacoma
Oh.
does,
No.
but like
No.
Erie and
They say they do,
Seattle
but they
do.
don't.
Oh,
yeah.
And
No, we're trying to, there's talks of creating a film office. Seattle has a film office, and then we have Washington Filmworks, which is the nonprofit, film office for Washington State, run by Amy Lillard. They're great. They're lovely people. They do a great job. And then Seattle has a film office. Does Olympia have a film office?
No, technically we do, but they don't do anything.
Yeah.
It's in the tourism or office.
Yeah,
They have no money.
yeah, that's the thing, is it all comes out to like the budgets and things like that. I would love there to be like a central film liaison person in town. There's a few city council folks that I'm hoping will take that responsibility, that everyone can just go to like hit them up and like, and they just point people in the right direction. I know that, Jamaica Scott had put, some UW Tacoma students on this task of like pooling all these resources together for like a website. So I think that's in the works right now for like all the gear rental places, and I sent them a ton of like resources locally. So I think they're trying to create that, and hopefully they can create like a crew database sheet as well. I know Washington has one, has like a crew database.
Didn't Washington Filmworks make one
Yeah.
database?
Yeah, they have one. They have a website that has like crews and stuff on it, and then they have like their job they've done, some movies they've worked on and stuff like that.
Used to be updated though.
Yeah, yeah, it does. Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I was wondering if you guys have made connections with the Grand Tacoma Cinema.
Oh, yeah.
Because they do also film production, festivals, and so that would be it. And they're actually looking right now for a new director,
Yeah.
Yeah.
if anyone is interested.
So Grant has been very supportive.
Yeah, Grant is great. I was on the board
They have-
for
they're
years.
wonderful, very
And also UW has,
From Grant, yeah, they promoted the thing, but also they have offered us to use the space that they have downstairs. So they're wonderful.
yeah, so
Very good.
UW,
Go take membership in the Grant League.
yeah, UW Tacoma has a great theater department.
Who?
UW Tacoma.
Oh,
Yeah, and I know very well the teacher there. And so that it really produces amazing actors.
yeah.
And actresses, really. I just worked in a theater production that they directed. So together with the Tacoma Media Theater, which is another great source. And so.
Yeah, but the Grand is great. We love the Grand. They screen movies for us. I'm gonna host, I'm gonna partner with a few nonprofits in town, for our film that I like to manage. It's big about youth and gun violence. So we're gonna do some partnerships, and in June, we'll probably do a screening down at the Grand. But yeah, the Grand is fantastic.
Yeah, with the incentives as far as what comes from, say, the city or the county, what does that look like? You know, and we mentioned certain places are essentially giving out tons of money to make films in their area. Is that in the form of grants?
No, so it's a rebate program here in Washington. So, but it's only from a centralized source from Washington Filmworks. They administer all that money. It's not like county by county. I mean, there might be, I think Shoreline was trying to create like a little bump on their side. And I've talked to like the director of economic growth a few years back, and he was offering the idea of like a B&O tax that would go towards like an incentive for Tacoma, or maybe Pierce County, but it comes all from Washington Filmworks. So they take all, you have to like do all the applications, do that, you have to apply. The hard part in Washington is you have to have 100% of the financing in place before you can apply. And that is very difficult from a producer's perspective, because a lot of times I like to apply to places, and then I know, oh, I'm gonna get back 30%, here's my approved expenses, then I go get like a debt lender to cover the 30%. But you have to have 100% when you apply, which is a little bit harder of a process. But they're working through it. I think that we'll get there.
So that's one of, I imagine, many ways to incentivize film production.
Yeah.
Right, there would be